So tomorrow morning you're going to hear great words about this week's Torah portion, so you should come back. But tonight I want to speak a little bit about this week's Torah portion and share a little bit more about what I shared in the Elohe, God of. So in this week's Torah portion, Va'era, it's kind of part two of the same question that Moses has asked God. So part of this week's and last week's Torah portion is the story that I hope many of us are familiar with at the Passover Seder, of our story, even though I don't know if I was physically there or not, our story of moving from slavery into freedom, because it's something we should work toward every day, moving from something difficult into light. And this is so Moses has now been kind of told, you're going to go to Pharaoh, you're going to do these things. And Moses is a very reluctant leader, a reluctant participant in that duty. I don't know about you, but I've certainly been told I'm going to do things that I don't want to do. And so Moses is kind of questioning and feeling a little frustrated. He's already gone to Pharaoh once, and Pharaoh was like, no. So he's feeling scared, I think, and maybe alone. And in last week's Torah portion, he begins this question, and it's answered one way. And in this week's Torah portion, it kind of continues, and it's answered another way. And biblical scholars argue about whether it's the same moment or whether it's a completely different conversation, that Moses went back and it's like, wait, you didn't answer me well enough the first time. So we don't know whether it's the same moment or a different moment. But Moses is saying to God, what's your name? Who are you? You know, you're telling me to do this. It's not going so well yet. What's going on? Who are you? He wants to know God's name. And in the Torah, until now, God's name has been referred to as a few things, El Shaddai and also Elohim. And Elohim, or Eloheinu, which you say all the time, it's really a job description for God. It really means God, like janitor, God, doctor. It's like it's a job description, right? God does all of those jobs in different ways. And Eloheinu means our God. The new ending means our. And so there's not a name. You know, Moses is like, what's your name? I know you're God. That's your job description. But what's your name? And God answers, of course, in not simple ways. And God says first, Ehyeh Asher Ehyeh. I am what I am. It's like Popeye, right? Which is where it came from, actually. But I am what I am, or I am what I will be. That's God's name. I am what I am, or I am what I will be. It's kind of both in the Hebrew grammatically. Karen, you can tell me if I say it wrong grammatically, right? You'll help me out? It means both of those things, kind of held together. And then, when Moses keeps asking, God says a name that's unpronounceable. It's ineffable. We mark it with the letters Yud, He, Vav, He, which we pronounce, when we see those letters, we pronounce them Adonai. But God kind of said that's God's name, but it's not speakable. There are some people that think that they can create a name out of that, and that's God's proper name. So there's other religions that use a word that comes from that and call God by that name. But for Jews, it's ineffable. It's Yud He Vav He sounds like breath. So I talked about if the word God, okay, it's not someone in a chair up above doling out punishments and things like that. And if that's what that word does for you, then you don't have to use that word. Maybe it's ineffable. Maybe it's breath. Maybe it's Adonai. And so God is really saying, I am revealed through, I don't know why I write everything down first, because I'm not even looking, because I can't even read my writing, but I'm going to try and see what I wanted to say. God is revealed through deeds and actions, that God will bring our people out of Egypt. God will redeem us from slavery, is what God says to Moses. Trust me, is what God says. I'm going to do some work. I'm going to reveal myself in deeds and actions. And so this portion got me thinking, what are the names of God that we use? So we said we use this word Adonai. And so we use Eloheinu, God. our God. Job description, God. You're doing stuff. Adonai has a connotation of sort of Lord, parent. God is parent, not parent. My parent. I don't know what your parents were like, but God is like parent. So Adonai is kind of this mercy and justice, doling out mercy and justice. It's a very authoritative way to call God. So in some prayers, we say Adonai. And I was thinking about what are the other names we name God? And again, if your theology struggles, there are other names in the Torah, in the Bible, in our prayers, that gives God different names. And so I was thinking about what some of those were. And certainly you can tell me if I missed some. Hamakom, the place, capital P, the place. Hamakom. Ribono shel olam, master of the universe, or just universe. Hagavura, courage, the strength, the courage, capital C. Hakadosh Baruch Hu, the Holy One, blessed be. Hashem, have you ever heard that one before? Sound familiar? Har Hashem, mountain of Hashem really means of God, but it's saying of God's name. Just God's name, which we don't know what it is. Mountain of God, Hashem, the name. And Shekhinah, which is a feminine word for God, because God isn't masculine or feminine, God is. And Shekhinah is like an intimate feminine presence of God. So like when you're sitting, I always think it's God as friend. We have God as parent, and we have God as friend, as intimate, feminine friend. Anything I missed? That was my list that I made. Is there anything that you want to remind me of? Say it louder. Ha'evan, the rock. Tzur Yisrael, rock of Israel. Beautiful. Thank you. Anything else? Because there is no exhaustive list. So, and what I hope it shows you is that we can name God what we need to name God, because God will be what God will be, and God is. It's ineffable, and yet we can also name it all these things. And so I'm wondering, how can you use these different names of God in your life, in your prayers, in your connection to your theology? How can you use this to understand? Why are there different names for God? Why doesn't God just have a name, Joe? Why isn't God's name Joe? Right? And how can this affect our theology? How can we then know that every breath, every place, the universe, all of creation has God? So I'd like to leave you with that thought. Let's turn to the bottom of page 586, the bottom of page 586.